quickly taken by Gibbs. Kept rolling by below. For Forlan! What's he got? An excellent game. You don't have a player in there.
After 3 long years of false hope, a house promised Sarah Liengu Etonge, Queen of Mount Cameroon, by the government may finally be completed and delivered this year. French authorities say a World Cup warm-up match between Cameroon and Portugal cannot unfold on their territory. Find out the reasons for that embarrassing decision in the minutes ahead. And after several weeks of uncertainty, the Division 1 Championship finally rumbles off the Saturday, February 1, with an unusual 19 clubs at the starting blocks. And while former Indomitable House defender Pierre Womelens finds a new home at UMS of Loom, Fabrice Olinga is tacitly shown the exit door at Spanish La Liga side FC Malaga. It sincerely gladdens our hearts to know you're keeping the date yet again. This, of course, is Green Turf, sports from Cameroon and by Cameroonians. Don't you go away. Close to 4 years ago, the government took the commitment to build a befitting home for Sarah Liengu Etonge in recognition of a 7-time conquering of the highest geographical peak in West and Central Africa. But the wait for that promise to mature has been long and uncertain. And as the countdown begins to narrow to the 2014 edition of the back-breaking Mount Cameroon Race of Hope begins to narrow, we hear that Sarah may finally be handed the keys to that abode on February 14. Up next, a critique of the week. A line in the chorus of Cameroon's national anthem depicts the country as a land of promise. Paradoxically, it is a country where promises hardly ever come true. This footage, featuring the laying of a foundation stone for a house for 7-time winner of the grueling Mount Cameroon race, Sarah Liengu Etonge, dates back close to 4 years now. And despite the fanfare that spiced the rather fictitious ceremony to mark the founding of the building in Boya Town by Sports Minister Adum Garwa, Sarah has helplessly waited, hoping against hope for the government's promise to mature. On the sidelines of the last edition of the foot race in February 2013, the same minister emphatically reiterated the house would finally be erected in the course of that year. Another vain promise as the queen of the mountain cheered and waited until dusk, finally settled on 2013 with no house to call her own. And now, in the build-up to the 2014 edition of the back-breaking marathon slated for February 15, officials say the construction of the house, apparently transferred to somewhere behind the Moliko Stadium from the initial site at Boya Town, is finally nearing completion, and its keys would be handed Sarah on February 14. True or false is the question wagging several lips across the country. Meantime, owing to the repeated fake promises of the past, Sarah may be obliged to challenge the mountain race once again, and despite her advanced age, this year, prices for winners are particularly tempting, with the heralded comeback of former sponsor Diageo Guinness Cameroon. Winners will take home 10 million francs CFA, up from 3 million previously. Now let's delve into a bit of football politicking. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, an international friendly to pit Cameroon against Portugal was announced as part of muzzle flexing plans in prelude to the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. Well, that game was initially slated to unfold in the French city of Lille on March 5. Well, currently, French authorities say God forbid any such thing from unfolding on their territory. They have another international friendly lined up on the same day against the Netherlands. And the fear apparently rests in the fact that Samuel Eto'o and Cristiano Ronaldo could end up stealing the show and rendering the French friendly highly unpopular. Road to Brazil is an increasingly regular feature only on green turf.
Vamos a celebrar, la fiesta va a empezar.
The 2014 World Cup is still about 5 months away in time, but already officials at the Cameroon Football Federation are basking in contentment after successfully begging for assistance from officials of the Brazilian state of Espírito Santo. Cameroon recently selected the state capital Vitória as base for the country's official delegation to the tournament. In fact, it has even been confirmed the Indomitable Lions will be camped at the Sheraton Vitória Hotel, a 5-star lodge on the Do Canto Beach facing the Atlantic Ocean in the southeast of the largest South American nation. So, last week, the Cameroon Football Federation FECAFOOT announced that local government and football officials in the state of Espírito Santo had agreed to provide several facilitations for a 120-man delegation it will send to Brazil for the World Cup. The assistance package includes free lodging, food, transportation, as well as a site to serve as Cameroon's cultural village. According to FECAFOOT Secretary General Tombi Aroko Seriki, who personally traveled to Brazil to negotiate the deal on behalf of the Normalization Committee currently running affairs at the Federation, a tripartite agreement validating the arrangement was signed by the governor of Espírito Santo, Jose Renato Casagrande. Officials of the State Football Association as well as FECAFOOT. But ever since the news was broken, critics have not stopped questioning the logic behind the plethoric size of the Cameroonian delegation. Others are asking why FECAFOOT would go disgrace Cameroon by begging for assistance, whereas FIFA is expected to cover financial charges for invited delegations. Furthermore, fault finders say they will not be surprised if girlfriends and relatives of the Federation officials are inserted in the delegation only for inflated expenditure bills to be later brandished.
Against the backdrop of widespread grumbling by football lovers over the colossal amounts of money required to attend and leave the 20th World Cup live, FIFA has been allocating equally expensive match tickets for fans worldwide. That score, 8,035 tickets have been placed at the disposal of Cameroonians playing to make the voyage to Brazil. 1,975 tickets have been reserved for the Indomitable Lions opening group stage clash against Mexico on June 13th in Manaus. 1,993 are already on sale for the second first round outing against Croatia on June 18 in Natal, while the highest number offered tickets, 4,067, have been earmarked for the last group confrontation against host Brazil on June 23rd in Brasilia. FIFA says there are two ways of purchasing the stadium access cards. Fans aiming to buy the tickets in groups were allowed until January 29th to commence the purchase online, while individuals have a February 7th deadline. For the first round matches, tickets cost anything from 45,000 to 87,500 francs CFA, and beyond the group stages, spectators could pay up to 550,000 francs CFA to watch a single game. Distribution of purchased tickets, which will bear the names of their buyers, begins March 15. Meantime, FECAFOOT has already reserved 700 tickets, not included in over 8,000 for Cameroonian fans. Observers say hopefully there will not be repeat of the 1998 World Cup scandal when officials at Fecafoot brought shame on Cameroon by collecting the tickets from FIFA and placing them on the black market.
As part of preparations for the upcoming World Cup, Cameroon announced in early January it had concluded arrangements for a warm-up game against Portugal on March 5. But the muzzle-flexing encounter, initially listed to unfold on neutral ground in the French city of Lille, has been relocated to Leiria in Portugal. The decision to transfer the friendly follows a refusal by French authorities to have the game played on their territory. Unofficial reasons advanced for the embarrassing French opposition to the match seemingly rests in fears that its national team, Les Bleus, will be involved in another World Cup warm-up game against the Netherlands on the same date. Apparently, French football authorities are scared all eyes will turn to the Cameroon-Portugal preparatory clash, rendering their own slated friendly unpopular, especially with the likes of Samuel Eto'o and 2013 FIFA Player of the Year Cristiano Ronaldo on the green turfs. So while fault finders suggest Cameroon should be ashamed of its protracting failure to bring such important friendlies home as occurs in next-door Equatorial Guinea and Gabon, the mayor of Leiria has been lauding the initiative. Gracias for sticking around with us, and tons of love as usual from producer Calvin Tikam and stage manager Serge Tachimo. So after several weeks of incertitude, the Division 1 Championship finally kicks off this Saturday, February 1 at the Bepanda Reunification Stadium right here in Douala, with an opening match between Astre FC of Douala and Unisport of the Oncam. And the unusual thing this year is that 19 teams will race for the league title as well as an African Champions League spot, an odd number which critics say sincerely betrays the complacent manner with which football is managed and organized in Cameroon. Thanks for staying with us. Astre FC of Douala versus Unisport of the Oncam. That's the fixture slated to start off the long-awaited 2014 Division 1 Football Championship in Cameroon this Saturday, February 1. The decision was arrived at last week following consultations between the so-called Professional Football League and the Association of Elite Club Presidents after an initial January 18 debut date was simply shelved over financial and club readiness concerns. And despite prevalent divergence, it was resolved that the season will feature 19 clubs, an abnormal and very bizarre Cameroonian invention. That's up from 14 last year, implying the likes of Tone Kalara Club of Yaoundé, Sable of Bati and Panther of Dundee, all which were relegated last year, have been rescued alongside Bambutos of Mbuda, who have been rehabilitated 7 years after they were demoted 3 categories by Fecafoot over match-fixing charges.
C'est nous-mêmes qui l'a.
According to the Provisionary Management Committee at the Football League, headed by the enigmatic and unpredictable General Pierre Semenge, 4 clubs will be relegated to the inferior Division 2 category at the end of the season, while 3 will be promoted to keep the number at 18 as prescribed by the Normalization Committee. And as observers and actors brace up for the new season debut, many are wondering if the assorted personality quarrels, leadership wrangling and money wars that severely tarnished the organization of the last championship can be avoided.
When mobile telephone giant MTN resolved to terminate its sponsorship of league football in Cameroon even before the end of the 2013 season, many concluded this year's competition will be critically hampered. The subsidiary of the South African mobile telephony company pumped over 650 million francs CFA as sponsorship grant last year and was expected to repeat the feat this month. This season, according to the terms of a 2-year agreement signed with the Professional Football League in January 2013. But after a particularly chaotic, scandalous and lengthy competition, flown with repeated fights over money, leadership tussles and ensuing interruptions, MTN decided to back out, ending a 12-year funding during which the company injected over 7.5 billion francs CFA into the unperceivable development of the beautiful game. Initially, the professional league, which critics say remains fictitious, said it was folding sleeves to drag MTN to court for unilateral rupture of the sponsorship contract. But after thinking twice, officials said they would have no case, considering that the deal stipulated that each party had the right to opt out at any moment.
For me, it's unity, coming together and trucking one's integrity.
Despite its withdrawal, MTN has announced it is granting the league 165 million francs CFA, a no strings attached grant. The generosity adds to 560 million francs awaited from the government, with an advance disbursement of 300 million already allocated. Elsewhere, 410 million is expected from Fecafoot, up from the 250 million it usually disburses. All that money has planted smiles on the faces of the 37 Division 1 and 2 club officials. While D1 clubs are taking home 16 million, their D2 counterparts have been apportioned 6.5 million francs CFA each. And while an announcement by the state-owned telephone service provider Camtel to take up sponsorship of the championship remains empty talk, critics say General Semenge must be judicious in how he spends all the incoming money. Last year, some 405 million francs CFA was spent mostly in reimbursing match officials. Hey, have you got some thoughts to share with us? Kindly drop us a line at greenturf@canal2international.net. And also remember, there's always a Green Turf rerun Fridays at 10:30 a.m. Cameroon time. And that's it. Now, former left flank indomitable house defender Pierre Womelen finds a new home at the up-and-coming UMS of Loom, even as another Cameroon international, Fabrice Olinga, is tacitly shown the exit door at Spanish La Liga side FC Malaga. Thanks for staying with us.
I was born by the river in a little tent.
After weeks of rumors and speculation, it's now formal. Pierre Womelen, former captain of Canon Sportif of Yaoundé and the Professional Football League's most valuable player for 2013, who spent this year's Division 1 season within the ranks of the Juvenile Union de Mouvement Sportif of Loom.
Oh, yes, it will.
The 35-year-old former left flank defender with Cameroon's Indomitable Lions has put up his signature on a contract with the club, stipulating he will stay there for 2 years. The financial string attached to the deal have, however, remained tightly held secret.
Beyond the sky.
Nonetheless, UMS are hoping Wome will help them achieve glory in their first ever Division 1 football experience. The one-year-old club emerged as the revelation for 2013, gaining promotion to the Elite League and reaching the semi-final of the 54th Cup of Cameroon, won last December 22nd by Young Sports Academy of Bamenda at the expense of Canon Sportif. Actually, the genesis of Wome's departure from Canon resides in the cup loss. Soon after the mishap, Wome was blacklisted as troublemaker, placed in the firing line, and blamed for inciting revolt amongst the teammates over unpaid remunerations.
Oh, yes it will.
Wome returned home to Kanong in 2012 after a lengthy European sojourn and quickly harvested respect from fans with his laudable performance that enabled him emerge top scorer for Kanong, even as a defender.
Brother, help me please.
Die-hard supporters of UMS Loom are hoping he can repeat the same exploits at his new club.
Hands up, knocking me.
No matter what they say to me, I'm gonna make my money. And anyone who don't believe, best stay away from me.
Remember Fabrice Olinga? Well, after being chained on the reserve bench at Spanish side FC Malaga for near eternity, the 18-year-old has finally been sent on loan to Belgian club Zulte Waregem for a period of 6 months. It is clear he will not be returning to Malaga as his short-term contract actually expires in June 2014. Olinga will certainly use the transfer to secure more playing time and hope for a summons by Volker Finke as the indomitable Lions prepare for Brazil 2014. All through last year, Olinga's future at Malaga appeared quite uncertain as he mostly watched from the bench as his teammates took turns proving their worth. In fact, he even attempted leaving the Spanish side when he refused to return from a vacation in Madrid, but was reminded he could not go anywhere as he was hooked to the club by a €3 million liberation fee, a metaphorical handcuff that will be broken come June.
Never let them knock you off your grind, even if they plot to take your life.
The contours of a new 50,000-seater Omisport Stadium planned for construction in Cameroon's largest city, Douala, were clarified last week following a working visit to the intended project site by the Secretary General in the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education, Emmanuel Wongyu. It emerged that the venture will only materialize after 4 years whenever its construction actually takes off, and that's pending 3 months of feasibility studies to be carried out at the project site at Mbwabakoko on the outskirts of the city in the Douala 3 municipality. According to plans, the playground will be perched on a 100-hectare surface area government government property and will be fitted with handball, volleyball and basketball courts, as well as 2 training grounds and a 20,000-seater gymnasium, parking lots, business centers and offices. The initiative falls within the scope of the delaying national program for the development of sports infrastructure, the fruit of Sino-Cameroon cooperation. It will follow the construction of a similar football playground in Limbe, Bafoussam and come before another planned for the capital Yaoundé. A technical appreciation implies the Douala Stadium will not be ready for the 2016 Women's African Cup of Nations, which Cameroon will host, and may only be ready for the 2019 Men's Nations Cup if Cameroon wins the hosting bid.
Good people, that's where we imperatively ought to replace the lids on this week's installment of Green Turf. Unfortunately, how time flies, but we come back Tuesday 5:30 p.m. with a fresher edition of Green Turf, sports in all its splendor from a critical backdrop. Now don't you forget to tell your neighbor to always show love, not only to you, but to the world in general. When we come back Tuesday, we're probably going to be discussing the recent appointments at the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education, with a particular focus on the case of Bonaventure Jonkep, who becomes the coach of Cameroon's Intermediate Lions. That's after the expulsion of Sango Emmanuel Dumbe Bosso and the short stint at the helm of that team by Dieudonné Nke. Until next week, Shalom!